Horizon, an American Saga, Chapter 1, directed by Kevin Costner, stars Kevin Costner, Sienna Miller, Michael Rooker, and many more in an ensemble cast. Horizon chronicles a country at war with itself, experienced through the lens of families, friends, and foes, all attempting to discover what it truly means to be the United States of America. Before this movie came out, I randomly stumbled across it when I was doom scrolling on Letterboxd, and then as I researched it more, seeing that this had been a passion project for Costner since sometime in the early 2000s. With that fact in mind, I got pretty excited. And I got more excited when I found out this was going to be somewhat of an event in cinema, as this is somewhat a franchise that will have 4 installments. Second installment is already scheduled to drop in August. So naturally, with all of that in mind, I had to check out this first installment to see what it was all about. We'll start with the performances. To my surprise, Kevin Costner doesn't show up for a good while into the movie. He doesn't come into this thing till about maybe 40 minutes to an hour into the movie. When he shows up, he's great. His character is the standard man who lives outside the law. He's a good guy while still being morally questionable at the same time, which is always an interesting thing to see in westerns, especially even if the trope is a little redundant. He doesn't do all too much when he's in the movie except kind of just look cool, but I'm assuming his character would get more to do in the other parts of this franchise. Sam Worthington is in this too. I thought his character was pretty cool. He plays a lieutenant and brings this aura of charisma and charm to his role. He seems to have this romance plot going on, which will probably be explored more in the other parts of this franchise. Get used to me saying that, because that's basically a huge thing with this movie, which I'll get to later. He's just your standard hero, good guy archetype. His character is pretty clean cut. I think he pulls that off pretty well. I really liked Michael Rooker in this role too. He acts as more of the comedic relief in this movie. He's also doing an Irish accent, which is always something I personally gotta look out for in movies to make sure a non-Irish actor is doing a decent enough job at it. And thankfully, he does in fact do a good job at his accent. He has some pretty funny moments. There's a part where he's doing this little scheme with these 2 soldiers, and it was a pretty humorous scene that almost felt straight ripped from a Jon Ford movie. Along with this, he also knows when to play it straight and give these truly emotional moments too. He's able to balance that really well here. I think the weakest here was Abbey Lee. I only knew her from Mad Max Fury Road for this, and I know she has way less lines in that movie than she did here. Whenever she delivers lines, to me, it just felt like it was always in the first or second take, and they had nothing else beyond that. Her performance to me just felt really wooden, which was a shame, but who knows, maybe she'll be given better material to work with in the other parts of this franchise. I thought the cinematography in this movie looked pretty good. Visually, it's really impressive, as we're given these panoramic scopes of the western landscape, and it always looked really appealing. A lot of dedication and care put into how this movie looked visually, which is such a shame when it comes to the actual look of the movie. And when I say look, I more so mean the way this movie is graded and lit, especially. This movie has such flat lighting, or it's so disappointing. It basically looks like a TV movie. Well, yes, we have this scope of viewing all these landscapes. They never really pop off the screen and fully immerse you like they would in the days of Technicolor pictures. There were maybe only 2 or 3 scenes where there was decent enough lighting, but a good majority of this movie is so flat looking, and for me that was one of the biggest disappointments. Another thing about this movie that bothered me to some degree is that I technically can't say if the runtime of this thing is fully warranted. This franchise is going to split into 4 parts, and its first part is 3 hours long. The last 5 of those minutes act as a trailer for the next movie, by the way. While I don't mind long cinema, and I think big runtimes can really help in terms of building character and world building, I really do think there's just scenes that could have been severely cut down or even cut out of this movie entirely. But at the same time, there is a good few segments of the movie that are needed for a lot of context, so I suppose really just some trimming was what the movie needed more than anything. So do I think this needed to be 3 hours? Not particularly, yet at the same time there are moments that do need that expansion. It's a very thin line where I can't bring myself to fully agree that this 3-hour runtime is warranted here. On top of this, like I mentioned before, this movie ends with a trailer essentially for the next part. This movie doesn't have an ending, and I know many movies act this way. For example, the new Spider-Verse movie had that cliffhanger ending. Although here we don't actually have a cliffhanger. There's a scene going on, and as it's ending, we see this trailer, so that was definitely jarring to see here. I appreciate this movie wears its influences on its sleeves. It has the grittiness of a spaghetti western in terms of its violence, even if there's not that many action scenes. There's a sequence near the beginning that I thought was very gripping and very thrilling, while also being extremely harrowing so early on. Besides this, it takes a lot from the Jon Ford westerns of the past by having this laid back feel for a majority of its runtime. A lot of character traits from those movies are written here too, which was interesting to see. Overall, there was a lot of things I enjoyed about this movie. Westerns are definitely a rarity in the modern landscape of movie going. I guess audiences just aren't as captured by them as they used to be, so studios probably don't see them as financially sufficient. I definitely respect the hell out of Kevin Costner for getting his passion project out there and giving it the feeling of an event, even if the rest of the world isn't really giving it as much levity as he probably thought he would hope. I think it doesn't help that there's just points you're watching this movie and it really does feel like a TV show. There's 3 or 4 points where the screen would fade in and out of black, and whenever this happened it felt like that was one episode ending when another one beginning. So that was another choice that felt interesting but ultimately a little jarring too. There's just things that hold it back from being the masterpiece it's trying to sell itself as being. I'm giving Horizon and American Saga Chapter 1 3.5 stars. It's host to some pretty good performances, very impressive set pieces, beautiful looking cinematography, along with some visually great sequences. However, it falls flat in terms of a bloated runtime and a structure that felt like it could have been a TV show rather than being shown in theaters. However, with that being said, I would still recommend this movie and encourage people to see it in theaters, as it's important to let passion projects like this flourish in the modern cinema landscape. While yes, it looks like a TV show, you'd basically be paying the same price for a movie ticket as you would be paying monthly to a shitty streaming service.